I don't know where to go. Walking will just take too long and I can take it slow. I'll keep on pushing cause I know I'll take it farther. And everyone that knows me knows that I am stronger. Leave it all behind, I don't need nothing to distract me. Nothing can get in my way, I know that I'll run free. I got the energy, it's all I need to finish. And everyone that knows me knows that I can do this. Yeah, I know that I can do this. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. Hey, yeah. Oh, just watch me do this. Show me what you got, you think you're able to keep up with me. And if we're side by side, they'll never even be ready. There ain't no telling what will happen next. But I can tell you it's my move and I ain't never stressed. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. Hey, yeah. Oh, just watch me do this. Check it out, check it out. Oh, are you ready for this? Check it out, check it out. Oh, check me out. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. and you're gonna know my name. I'm here to claim my title now. I'm here, the king that wears the crown. You better back down, you better back down. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. A champion don't need any introductions. A fighter don't know any limitations. I was made to stand on a mountain now. I was made to rise from the ashes now. I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. You should know my name. Do you know my name? You're gonna know my name. Yeah, you're gonna know my name. You should know my name. Do you know my name? You're gonna know my name. Yeah, you're gonna know my name. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all. I'm the greatest of all. Torches lit, water flows, visions come, words will go, laws are made, statutes unwinding.
Hey! What's going on, everyone? Welcome again to the Child of Mecha live stream. Hey, it's 2 nights in a row that we're doing this, or 2 scheduled nights in a row. Hey! Hi, how are you? Rocking the classic blacked out Mecha shirt this evening. Man, it's good to see everybody. What's going on? How was your Tuesday? More importantly, how's your Wednesday? Mine's been pretty decent. Yeah. So, hey, let's get into this, shall we? Focus, camera. Jeez. Alright, so, hey, if you all want one of these cool-ass, blacked-out mecha shirts here, in that oh-so-classic script, go hit you up, www.childofmecha.com. There's a store button up at the top. Hit that. You'll be transported. Whoa, what happened there? Demons. You'll be transported to the store, where you'll find all these shirts and hats and all that other kind of cool stuff on there. Go get you some. Go stock up. They make a wonderful Valentine's Day gift for someone you may or may not know. I don't know how that works. Anyway, and if you are interested in any of the tools and the materials that we are working with here tonight, go hit up that little Amazon link just below here on YouTube and Twitch, that side if you're watching on Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, we need to give a big shout out to the Mecha Army. Let's see if this works tonight. Oh, it works. Yeah. So if you guys have been living under a rock for the past 2 days, the Mecha Army has their own Facebook group. So big shout out to everybody that joined up here in the last 2 days. Almost 200. 202 days. That's pretty serious, right? So super happy and pleased about that. So welcome everyone. If you're watching in the Mecha Army group, what's going on? I have it up and I'm actively looking at the chat. There's a few of you in there. What's going on? Yeah, so that's really cool. So if you have not joined the Mecha Army Facebook group, I highly suggest that you do. Again, the link for that is just down here on YouTube. Twitch, I haven't updated you yet, but I still love you. That side, if you're watching on the Chada Mecha Facebook page, and if you're on the Chada Mecha Facebook page, there's a link to it right on there. So it's really easy to get to. Yeah, really easy to get to. Sign up, have fun, post your models. There's been a ton of people posting their models here in the past 2 days, and what's really been very cool is that there have been some people that have joined and they're not so confident in their skill sets just yet. I get it, but you're in the right place. You're in the right place. The Chada or the Mecha Army Facebook group, that's the right place for you, because we're going to help you build your skill sets. No matter what you need, we got you. Yes, we got you. And there's been a few threads on people like, I don't know about posting my work just yet. But there's been a lot of people replying, hey, don't worry about it. We all started somewhere. You're in the right place. And yes, you are. You're in the right place. So, good stuff there. Also, too, hey, if you guys didn't hear, Mecha Decal, boom. Mecha Decal Sheet 2, they're up for pre-order. Go get them. Go get them. Because they're amazing. So they're up to a bed. Demons again. They're up for pre-order over there on our good friend Adam. His wonderful shop right down yonder here, who I have not shouted out just yet. USA Gundam Store. They are available for international delivery. They're also available for wholesale. So if y'all know somebody that has a store or something like that and you want to bug them to get Mecha Decals, you better do it. Just saying. There's a wholesale link just on the front page of USA Gundam Store. Apply within, and yeah, it's pretty simple to get on the wholesale train. Yeah, a few stores have already done that. I know our good friend Zach up there at Galactic Toys, I know they have some on order, or they may even have them at this point. I don't know. But you guys should be able to either get them or get them soon there. There's a couple other stores that are ordering as well. So, hey, again, if you know a store, hit them up. Hit them up. Quality stuff. Yeah. Printed by our amazing colleagues in Italy, Cartograph. They're the best in the world at what they do. And, man, yeah, it couldn't get any better. Let's put it that way. You can't get much better than Cartograph. So, all right. So what are we doing this evening, folks? What are we going to do for the next 2 fun-filled hours? Good question. We're going to be working on this Jessa. We, last time, filled in some spots where we cut off some places, and we filled that in with plastic sheet. Well, tonight, we're going to be doing sort of the same thing, but with the center knee portion of it, right? If you remember, there was these 2 big gaps on it, and I'll show you here in just a few seconds. So what I did, rather than filling that with, say, plastic or super glue like I did on the chest, I went back to just good old epoxy putty. Tamiya Quick Type in the green box. My favorite epoxy putty of all time. Just smashed that in there on those two sides on both of these knees, and we're going to be doing that this evening. So we're going to be shaping epoxy putty and stuff like that, contouring it to match the part, and we're going to be refitting this to the knee because there's going to be a little few things that we'll need to do to make these parts fit back in there again now that we got that epoxy putty smashed in there. So we're gonna get messy, we're gonna get dirty tonight, but we're gonna have fun, and I'm gonna show you how I reshape these parts, and hopefully after you see this you'll be able to do the same thing for yours. Here's to hoping, right? So without any further ado, let's get it going. Let's go camera 2. Bang, here we are. All right, so these are the two parts that we're going to be focusing on here tonight, these two little guys. These knee parts, let's see, I've started trimming back the middle parts of this guy right here, and basically what I've been doing is just trying to remove any material in here that is inhibiting fitment, right? So there's the knee part, right? And it's the inner frame of that, and this would normally just pop right on there, but obviously you see there's some big gaps in it, right? So that's not going to work for us. We need to fine-tune and find out where this thing is getting hung up at, right? So that's what we're going to be doing first, and then after that we're going to be shaping and contouring the outside and just making this thing look like one solid piece again rather than a piece with two cancer lumps on it. I don't know. But before we do that, we're going to strap on our optivisor so we can see, and now we're going to get to work, right? So here we go. All right, so what we needed to do is we need to kind of take a look at the shapes and everything here on this inner frame piece, right? And just start kind of fitting this on here, and then just kind of do like a wobble back and forth, and that'll kind of give you a good idea of where it's getting caught up at first, right? Just like a teeter-totter almost, right? So you just kind of wiggle it back and forth here, and to me it feels like it's getting caught up right in there, right? So I see this little contour here, this little step right here on both sides, that needs a spot to fit in here, so we need to cut this back just a little bit, right? So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to start trimming this epoxy putty back just enough to where those two pieces are going to fit in there. So we're just going to take our hobby knife and we're just going to gently, very, very gently, kind of start to cut in to this epoxy putty, right? And now once we get through it, it should start to pop off there. So you can kind of see it right there, that little hanger right there, and boom, there she goes, done. Right. So this is a 3mm chisel by Sujiborido, or BMCs for those of you playing at home. So these are the 3mm are really good for kind of moving material out of the way. Not so great for actually scribing or anything like that, but for removing and moving material. So just like a wood chisel, you kind of push into the material with this bigger chisel. It's not how you do it with the smaller ones, right? You drag those, but with this bigger one, this has got a lot more material behind it, a lot more steel, a lot more heft. So you can push in to the materials with this particular chisel. And I would say most chisels, probably 1mm and up, are going to have enough material behind it where you can push into plastic or epoxy putty or what have you. Anything smaller, you're going to run the risk of breaking it. So quick tip there, right? So we're basically just kind of trimming this back almost to the plastic itself, and that's doing a pretty damn fine job of moving this epoxy putty out of the way for us here. But it's also really, really good at not removing too much, because that can also be a problem, right? It's easier to take material away than to put it on, especially with something like this, right? So let's see how that did here for us. We're still getting caught up there, so we still need to remove some more material here. And that's what this whole kind of process is. It's kind of a back and forth process. Did we remove enough? Maybe not. Go back to it. Remove some more. Rinse, repeat, basically, right? So that's what we're doing here. Need a little bit more from this side here. There we go. All right, let's see what that looks like. Ooh, that's getting us closer. If you look there, that gap has started to close, right? That's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. And now I can start to see where the next kind of blocking point is, right? So we've cleared these two kind of stair steps right here, but there's this feature right here, this kind of little block. You can see it right there that's starting to inhibit this piece from fitting on there properly, right? It goes down and then it just stops right there on that epoxy putty. So what we're gonna do is we are going to, let's see, we're gonna make a little mark. If we can get the hobby knife in there, make just a little mark of where that block starts, and then we're just going to transfer that to the other side with the hobby knife. And this doesn't have to be precise, it just gives you kind of an idea of where to remove that material, right? So then we're going to start just with the chisel again. We're going to start kicking back some of this epoxy putty again. And now we probably don't need to remove nearly as much here as we did for the first part, right? But we're going to do our due diligence here. And we are going to make this thing nice and even and neat. And once we get all that material from there, hopefully this thing should fit like a glove and like it should. And then we'll move on to shaping the outside, because that's really where kind of the fun stuff is, right? This is tedious, but it's also important, right? Also important. Man, all you guys over there on the Mecha Army Facebook group, what's going on? Good to see you guys. That's awesome. And again, I'm gonna beat this into the ground, but if you've not joined the Mecha Army Facebook group, I do highly recommend it. Alright. So there we've got some good material moved. We want to get a little bit more moved out of the way on this side. Just going to take our time. And just like that, Let's see what it do. Ooh. Hey now. Oh, we're close. We're super, super close. Look at that. There's hardly any gap left, right? There's a little bit down here, right here at the bottom. And this is a little offset now too. So we're going to... and I see where it's getting tripped up. Okay. So it's probably hard to see on camera, but right here, there's a little block right there that juts out. We need to remove some material there. So let's see. Let's see if that's actually it, because I'm not sure now. Okay. So let's just peel back some more material inside here. We'll see if that doesn't make a difference, because now on second inspection, I don't know if that's what's blocking this at this point. Okay. I'm just going to square that off right down there. Okay. Let's give that another shot here. Ooh, yeah. See, I think that's kind of what it was here. Let's pop this guy on here, this side armor. Just like that. And then, where's the other one? Here it is. We're going to pop this one on here. Even though we haven't filled this little section there yet, we're just going to pop this on here just to see how well we did with fitment here. Oh man, that is so super close. You can see just a little gap right there, right? Just a little bit. So let's see. Oh, hey, we got some questions. All right. So now, for those of you that are tuning in, that are new to this, especially you guys in the Mecha Army Facebook group, whenever someone asks a question, we get, "We have a question." That. Right? So we've got a couple questions. So let's get some answers out to people, right? So Soravan over there on Twitch, he asked, why didn't you do the Vaseline trick on those parts? Easy, because they're already fit to this knee, right? So we just need to trim this epoxy putty back so it fits again, right? Now, the Vaseline trick that he's talking about is getting a piece that is completely foreign, or is completely disconnected from another piece to fit, right? So case in point, and we're going to get you guys zoomed in here so I can illustrate what I mean here. So let's get you super zoomed, and let's get the little box. Let's go. Come on, box. There you go. Let's go 5x. Here we are. All right, so now that we're super zoomed in, let's get all the windows pulled back up here. We've got, this is right there. There we go. This is an elbow cover for a Zaku 2 2.0, right? And I'm trying to find an arm. Here we go. And this is just a donor arm from our boy Chris R. And you can kind of see, let's get that piece off there so you can better see. You can see here that this is the part on the inner frame that actually secures into the cover, right? So what if you have a piece that was never meant to go there, right? So say for instance, you know, you've got this weird little piece here, which was the knee armor to like a 144 Exia or something like that. I forget what it was, right? Say you want to fit this on here. You want to replace this armor, this elbow armor here with this, but there's nothing inside here to attach it to that, right? What do? Well, easy. What I did here was I crammed the back side of this with epoxy putty, and then slathered this part up here with Vaseline or petroleum jelly, whatever you want to call it. And then what that does is it acts as a release agent. So it prevents the epoxy putty from adhering to it and from gripping onto it. So once that epoxy putty is cured, and it will cure 100% even with that petroleum jelly on there, you get basically a mold of that assembly. And then what's going to happen is this part now is going to fit on there like a glove. All right, look at that. And that is how we made, whoop, there we go. Be good if I was in camera, right? And that's how we made this elbow joint armor for the Zaku 2 that I was working on last year. That is over there somewhere in a box waiting to be painted. So that's the Vaseline trick that Soravan was talking about, right? It's actually really, really easy to accomplish, but it just takes some thought and a little bit of creativity, right? So once you pop this off of there, obviously it's going to kind of look like that, right? So you're going to have to, shape up that epoxy putty and everything, and contour it and sand it down and make it even and blend in with the piece. That's going to be the harder part, right? But once you've got it, then you can kind of detail it up with some panel lines. I drilled a couple little holes in there for detail or whatever. And then rather than making a second one, I resin cast it. I cheated, yes. Whatever. But that's the Vaseline trick that Soravan was talking about. But hey, Soravan, thank you for bringing it up, because that it's a good tip regardless, right? So, second question. Julius Demsky, Sarge, he says, Tim, could you have pressed that piece onto the leg while the putty was still wet to avoid the scraping? You know what? Now, okay. I didn't quite see where Soravan was going with it, but now that I read Sarge's question, now I'm there with you, Soravan. Now I got you. In retrospect, I probably could have. And it probably would have made life a little bit easier. But I didn't do that, and I didn't think of that. So, rusty, right? So, yeah. So we're just gonna dick around and remove the putty the old school way, right? So that's what we're gonna do. Anyway, but good questions, boys. Good questions all around. All right. Let's see. Let's get you out of super zoom so we can see exactly what we are working on here. Let's get rid of the box. Pull the windows back up. There we go. We're ready to rock and roll. All right. So, getting back in this thing. This is looking pretty good. I think we need to remove just a little bit more over here. Yeah. There we go. All right. So, let's see what that does here. All right. So we're getting even closer now, because that is now thinner. But let's see where this could potentially be getting caught up here. Okay. So another thing that you can do. Rather than removing material out of here, you could also remove material right off of the leg itself, right off of the inner frame. So let's see if that helps anything, right? Let's see. Let's pull these sides off here so we can protect those from any sorts of damage. Now, let's put this back on here and see if we can't. Alright, so I think what we're going to do, there's a little corner piece right here that we're just going to cut that off, right? I'm just going to trim that down just like that. Now, I don't ever display my models with, you know, without the armor on. I just never do, because they're usually, you know, armor on, doing something, you know, whatever, right? So I'm not too worried with how the inner frame looks for the most part, right? Now, obviously there's some exceptions to that rule, the elbows, the knees, the neck, you know, shoulder joints, things like that. But for parts that are completely hidden by the armor, it really, in my opinion, doesn't matter, at least for me. Right now, mind you, if you're the type of person that likes to display your models with you know, sans armor, then obviously you're going to have a differing opinion, and I totally get that. But for me, it's one of those things that I'm not really all that concerned about, right? So, all right, so let's see if that did anything for us, because it might not have done anything, right? I was just kind of taking a shot in the dark there, but actually that's a little bit better. If you look down here at the gap between the knee part and the shin armor here, that gap is now starting to close up a little bit. So that is a good sign. That's really, really good to see. But I think looking over here, looks like this block could have something to do with it. So let's get this out of the way. Let's remove some more material over here. I'm just going to remove about another millimeter or so. And this is just more of a quality of life type of tip. When you're working and when you're measuring these models, and you need to be consistent all the way around, this is going to be a hard pill to swallow for everybody living in the US, but use the metric system. It's going to be so much easier on you in the long run. Trust me. Just food for thought. Start to get acclimated to millimeters, centimeters, all that, right? So, trust me. It'll make life so much easier for you. Alright, let's see what that... Ooh, we're close. We're super duper close. And that is starting to close even more. I like it, but I think right up here we need to remove just a little bit more material up near the top of this opening. Okay. Let's just do the same thing on this side, just for consistency's sake. All right. Now, ooh, hold up, hold the farm. Look at that. See how that gap is starting to close up really, really nicely right there. All right, let's put the side armor on here. Ooh, which way does it go here? Is that the? Oh, that's the wrong. I'm using the wrong leg. Actually, I'm using the correct leg. I trimmed the wrong leg. Oh well. But let's see what it looks like on the stock leg. See if we've got the same. No. Okay, so that corner that I cut off on the first one definitely makes a difference, right? So let's do the same thing on the correct leg. And we'll fit this up, and hopefully we'll be good to go here very, very shortly here. Okay. All right. So, ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. I think we got it. Yeah. All right. So, really, really good stuff right there. Look at that. That gap is completely closed up now. So that is good fitment. That's good fitment. So there we go. This is good. I like this comment. Zach Lothamer. Zach, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, buddy. He says, for real, I'm an electrician, and I am fairly amazed by people's ability to work in the trade and not read a ruler. Yeah, for real, right? Man, telling you, that's yeah, pretty much. Good stuff there. All right, so now what we have to do is we just have to shape this thing. So now the fun part starts, right? So with that being said, we need to knock down kind of the high points on this thing. Essentially get rid of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, right? And that's just part of this, right? So what we need to do now is we need to pull out our sledgehammer. And by that, I mean the Dremel. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you will not see me use the Dremel very often because it is brutish, for lack of a better term. This thing will remove a ton of material if you're not careful, right? So you're not going to see me use this all that much, but if we want to move some material, this is the job. This is the tool for the job, right? So now what that's going to do is it's going to kick up a lot of dust, and you don't really want to breathe in epoxy putty dust, trust me. So for this type of process, definitely wear a mask, right? And I'm going to put mine on here in just a few seconds, but we're going to clean up this little work area here so we don't have to do it later. And then also, while you're doing this, to minimize the dust, especially in your work area, because that's just the worst, right? Use a vacuum. I've got my little kind of rigid shop vac over here that we're going to crank up here in a few minutes. But first I need to get my respirator. So just don't stay there. Don't move. I'll be back. Just stay there. All right. So there we go. Now, for those of you that don't have a respirator, that don't have a mask, I highly, highly recommend that you get one because they are essential, in my opinion. It's better to spend $35 to $50 on this rather than coughing up a lung when you're 60 and dying from lung cancer from breathing in epoxy putty dust. Food for thought, right? So get one of these. If your filters get dirty and nasty, replace the filters. The filters themselves are probably like 15 to 20 bucks. I have, if you're not sure where to get one, check my Amazon link. I have one of these in there. I've had this thing for years, and I've replaced the filters, I think probably 2 or 3 times, something like that. And yeah, use this when you're painting. Use this when you're working with nasty, nasty stuff like epoxy putty. You don't necessarily have to use these when you're working with it and kind of manipulating the putty when it's kind of in a clay consistency. But if you're sanding it, if you're going to use the Dremel on it, it's going to kick up dust and it's nasty. Use this and protect yourself. So, I'm going to get off my high horse. I'm going to put this on here. We're going to crank this thing up. All right, so tighten it up. Make sure you got a good seal on this thing, right? So now, for those of you that haven't seen me wear this, my voice gets weird when I put this on. It like gets high for some reason, and I don't know why. Anyway, you'll see what I mean here in a few seconds. All right. So, here we go. Can you hear? You guys can hear me, right? I can see the mic level moving. But, so, when you are wearing this, it does make it a little bit more taxing to breathe because you're moving air in and out, and there's like a seal right here. And when you're breathing in, you're breathing in through the filter. So it is a little bit more taxing to breathe, right? And you sound like Darth Vader, so that's a plus. But you also look like one of those little enemies from Halo, right? Those little guys that just run around and cause havoc. So there you go. You can cosplay as that if you want to. All right, so we're gonna be working on this guy right here. Let me get the shop vac going. And you just get the hose. That's all you got to do, right? And we're gonna crank that son bitch up. Bring this up here. There we go. All right. So, and you gotta position the hose in such a way where it's not getting in your way, but it's also doing the trick, right? So, I don't know. Just do the best you can. That's all I can say. So, here we go. Alright, here goes the Dremel. Yeah, baby. Whew. All right. There we go. Yes, sir. Vince Lewis over there on YouTube says I look like I'm doing dental work, right? Nice. It almost feels like it, right? Weird. Anyway, so we've got the part shaped, rough shaped at this point, right? So we're looking pretty good there. Now, the problem that you're going to run into with this piece in particular, and let me zoom you in so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, is that you're going to have two kind of opposing angles here. You're going to have an angle going this way, but then you're going to have this top angle kind of going this way. So we need to find a way to match those up, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a few seconds. Now, the top portion here, this particular surface here is lower than this surface here by about a 1/2 millimeter. What we're going to do later on, once we get this thing fully shaped and everything, is we're going to fill this in and make this one continuous surface. We're going to backfill this with 1/2 millimeter styrene. Actually, now that I look at it, maybe it's a 1/4 millimeter, because this is, I believe, no, this is 1 millimeter. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to jump that hurdle when we come to it, right? So the easiest thing to do at this point is to even up the top surface, right? Because that's already, we've got this pretty thin, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by using the bastard file here. One of my favorite tools. If you don't have a big old honkin' beastie bastard file like this, and yes, they're called bastard files, I didn't make the name up, go get you one. They're very, very useful, especially in scale modeling, right? When you need to flatten out a surface like this, this is really, really good. But another really good thing, and this is just a shout out to my boy Luis, Ultraman Dyna, these two sanding plates here. Now, I wouldn't use these in this particular situation, but I'm just giving a shout out to my boy Luis. So I still have them. I still use them. They're one of my favorite tools. Luis, don't get your panties in a bunch. But for this, yeah, the bastard file is going to be king at this point. So there you can kind of see how we've got that that bottom box already back to prominence there, right? So now what we're going to do is we are going to use what's called a chisel blade, right? One of my favorites. It's just a squared off blade, and that's really it. These are by Olfa. Wonderful tool, by the way. Go check it out on the Amazon link. But I use this quite a bit for evening surfaces and stuff like that. And we're just going to start to remove this top section here with this chisel blade. And the really, really cool thing about the chisel blade is that you can actually just run it right across the surface and use the actual surface of the piece as a guide, right? You can just let it kind of glide right over the piece and everything, which is really nice. And that's what we're going to do here. Now, it is razor sharp, so you gotta be very careful, just like you would be with a hobby knife, right? Because this thing will sneak up and it'll bite you in the ass. It'll cut you, all right? So, and I like to use it kind of upside down, so the angle of the blade is like this, right? It's flat this way, but it's angled this way. And I like to let the angle just sit right there on the surface and just kind of use that as the guide, right? And you just want to go slow. Just let the blade do the work, right? And you want a fairly sharp blade for this particular process, right? You don't want a dull blade. Dull blades are going to be the worst thing that you could ever have in one of these. Mainly because you're going to have to force that dull blade through the plastic with more pressure. That's where a lot of problems will come into play. Because as you push that blade, that dull blade, into plastic, you're going to use more and more pressure, and then it's going to come to a point in the plastic where the plastic's soft, that density is going to vary, and your blade's going to shoot through that, and if you're not really, really careful, right into your finger. So, trust me, I've done it. It's not fun. It is not fun at all. So, use a nice, newish, sharp blade, and you're gonna run a lot lower risk of doing that. Trust me. Okay, and we are getting this thing nice and even right there. Perfect. And so this side is basically done at this point. We just need to kind of trim off these little flappy things here. Now I'm not going to go into the top part here. I'm just going to let that be because like I said, we're going to come back and we're going to backfill in this lower surface with plastic strip, plastic sheet, whatever, you know, whatever we want to use. So that's going to be filled in quite nicely. There we go. And a corner of that just chipped out. That's, again, not going to be a big deal because we're going to fill in any imperfections, any surface imperfections with super glue. That, my friends, is the best filler putty known to mankind. And if you haven't seen my comment about that on the Mecha Army Facebook group, go and take a look at that, right? Because I believe who posted that? I forget who, but somebody posted that question, and I know Zashawn had chimed in with the super glue answer, and then I kind of echoed what he had said with just a tad bit more detail. So Z, thank you for taking point on that. And there we go. That is nice and smooth. Now what we're going to do, just to be completely certain, is we're going to take our sanding block here. This has got about, I think about 600 or 800 grit into it. And we're just going to sand this surface. And you'll see how this just matches up perfectly. Just like that. Excellent. That, my friends, is completely smooth right there, right? That's looking good. That's a step in the right direction. Now, before we move on, we got a question. So, y'all know what time it is.
We have a question.
Greek Knocos over there on Twitch, he says, have you used Bondic as part of scratch building? If so, how do you like it? Bondic or Bondo? Because I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of Bondic. But Bondo, obviously, yeah. So Bondo comes in a bunch of different flavors. Let's talk about that for a minute while we're waiting for Greek Knocos to reply and specify. Bondo comes in a bunch of different flavors. Obviously, you know, if you're into cars and stuff like that, it's a great body filler for dents and scratches and imperfections and stuff like that to get a smooth surface for painting, right? Bondic. It's a UV reactive resin glue. No. I've not. Obviously, because I never heard of it, right? But I know there are some, you know, types of, you know, UV curing glues out there. I've never heard of that specific one, right? So no, I've never used it myself personally. Shit, I mean, test it. You know, that's what I would say with everything that, you know, you've never worked with. Definitely test it. But anyway, Bondo, right? It's like it's a two-part kind of putty. It's kind of like epoxy putty, but it's a bit different. It's more like polyester putty, if you guys are familiar with that. It's more viscous than obviously, you know, the epoxy putty that we use here, right? And it's not a 1-to-1, it's like a 10-to-1, right? You mix it up and you slather it on there, you let it cure, and then you go sand it off, just like we did here. And it comes in like the super hard stuff for automotive. It comes in lesser densities for more kind of home use and stuff like that, wood filler and stuff. And honestly, I used to use it in the past, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I think your mileage is going to vary, right? Mind you, you guys could love it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me and my workflow, it's just not my deal. So, yeah. But, what Greek Knocos had mentioned, the UV curing kind of resin glue, that could be really, really interesting, right? Because I've seen people use that before. There was there's a channel I follow on Facebook. It's the DIY and crafting. It's they make a bunch of videos where people create stuff, right? They had one on there the other day. A guy made a little submarine model. The little submarine model was maybe this big, right? But what he did was he encapsulated that in epoxy resin, clear epoxy resin that he tinted slightly blue to make it look like it was underwater. So to suspend the little model in the epoxy resin while it's curing, or else it would have sunk to the bottom, he made these little kind of support cylinders, and I think he used something like that because I saw him use like a UV flashlight to cure the connection between the model itself and the little supports. So it very well could have really, really cool uses. But yeah, I've never tried it myself, to be honest with you. So just one of those things. Might give it a shot. Who knows? Anyway, let's go back to this piece here, right? Now, like I said, you've got two opposing angles on each side, and we've got to figure that out somehow. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back to our chisel blade, right? And we're going to just kind of feather both sides down to where we can start to work on these angles, right? And we're just going to do the same type of movement here, same type of process with our chisel blade. We're just going to let that ride on the surface of the piece, right? Now, again, even with a sharp blade, you've got to be really, really careful. Finger placement when you're holding a piece and when you're using a chisel blade or any hobby knife for that matter is absolutely crucial, right? If your thumb is right here and you're pushing into it like this, that is a recipe for disaster, you guys. Don't do that. Move your thumb down here, move this finger below the piece, and then go after it. Because even if you slip, it's going to go like this. It's just going to go away from the meat of your finger. It's never fun. It's never fun getting cut. So, we're going to just trim this back ever so gently. We're just going to use that surface as our guide, right? So now you can kind of see how nice and tidy that looks. The epoxy putty and the piece make one super, super clean line. Now, what we're also going to do is we're going to use our bastard file again, and we are going to go at this particular surface, and we're just going to use that surface as our guide. And there we go. Now, this particular bastard file, like I said on Monday, is not particularly aggressive. this guy right here, the high spec one with, you know, the one with the red handle, this guy, this is super aggressive, and I'm not going to be using that at all for this type of process. That's overkill. But for this bastard file right here is actually really, really useful, right? So now we've got that kind of flattened down. Now we're going to come back in with our sanding block and just kind of really get that nice and even. And now let's get you super zoomed in so you can kind of see the transition between the piece and the epoxy, because it is really, really nice and smooth here. So boom, and let's get rid of that. Let's get super zoomed in here, and there we are. All right, so there you can, let's get some of the sanding dust away from that. There you can see the really, really nice and smooth transition on these two sanded surfaces. This surface here, and then obviously on the top surface here. You can see how just nice and clean those lines are where that epoxy putty fills in, right? So that's looking really, really nice. And if you were to run your fingernail over this, you do the fingernail test, obviously see it's not catching at all, right? So that is a clear indication that you've got these two surfaces matched up perfectly. So really nice start. Really nice start. All right, let's get you out of super zoom so we can get back to work here. Let's go 1x. Let's get rid of that box. Come on now. There we go. All right, let's get the windows pulled back up here, and we're again off to the races. Now, like I said before, we've got two opposing angles here. We've got this angle, and then we've got this kind of flat angle that goes like this. And now that I actually look at it, and you can see it right there, we actually are going to have three angles, right? So we've got the one at the bottom that we've already taken care of. You've got this one here, which forms this little kind of triangle deal right here. But then you also kind of have another angle, another surface angle right down here that's more flat and kind of more parallel. You can see that with these two pieces here. These two, this little flap here and this little flap here, they run parallel with one another. So they're kind of at a 90-degree angle. So now we actually have to deal with three angles instead of two. So it's just a little bit more complicated, but not that much. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same type of process here. We are going to start to feather out this edge of the epoxy putty on these two surfaces with our chisel blade, right? And we're just going to, again, let the part determine where that chisel blade is, where it runs, right? And then we'll clean it up with the file and the sanding block and all that good stuff, and we'll make this nice and neat. Excuse me. All right. We're gonna do the same thing with this angle here. Again, finger placement, you guys. Finger placement is absolutely crucial. Please, please, please make sure your fingers are out of the way of your blade, right? Alberto Grajales. God, I hope I'm saying that right, Alberto. He's over there in the Mecha Army group. He says, well, that's it for me. Good night, everyone. Happy building. Man, Alberto, thank you, buddy. Thank you for being part of the group as well. Appreciate that. All right. And guys, like I said, I'm gonna beat it until I can't do it anymore. If you haven't joined the Mecha Army Facebook group, go do it. Go do it. You can do it right now if you want. I won't be mad at you. It's a fun place right now. It's a fun experience. All right. We're doing pretty good stuff here. So now that we've got these transitions started to feather in, we're looking really, really quite nice, and we're almost ready to break out the file. I'm just gonna get just a few more shavings off of here. We're getting a little deep into the part for my liking here, but it's not a huge deal. All right, so let's get the file going here. Now, what you've got here for this particular angle, this angle broke right here at the transition. That's where the angle naturally breaks. But now that we filled this in, it's going to break above that line. So it's going to break into the epoxy putty. And what I mean by break is it will transition into another surface angle, right? So that's kind of what I mean. So now that we've got this, you can see how the epoxy putty takes that angle surface that right there and continues it up a little bit, probably another 1.5 millimeters or so. So now what we've got to do is we've got to ever so carefully follow these angles up here, and Facebook just binged. Hey, Brian C. Torres is over there on Facebook. What's going on, Brian? Good to see you, buddy. He says, hey, Tim Harkins, how's it going? Just doing my stream. That's it. So we're basically just need to start to transition this thing, and we need to be ever so careful. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to start to, I'm going to scrape this down a little bit, because what's happening is the file, this epoxy putty here is so high right now that it is catching the surface here, but it's also catching the corner of this angle, and that's not what we want. We need to square everything off. So by taking a little height off of this epoxy putty, that's going to help us to get a nice flat surface between the two. And we're just using you know, just a chisel blade to scrape that down a little bit, right? So that's pretty good. All right. Much better. Much better. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's perfect. That's what we want. These two surfaces are now starting to blend together and really starting to mesh up. So that's what we want to see. That's good. That's really good. Nice. Okay. So now perfect. All right, so that's good there. So we've got a nice smooth transition between the plastic here and the epoxy putty here. What we also did is we caused, because we smoothed the transition out between the plastic and the epoxy putty, we caused the natural break of that angle here to take place. And to better illustrate that, let me just draw right in there. That is now the new angle break. You can kind of see how it transitioned up into the epoxy putty now. So that's exactly what we want to see. That's really good. Now, we've got this third angle here that we have to deal with. This isn't a huge concern if it's not perfect, but we do want to try and make it as neat as possible, right? We are very interested in good symmetry on these pieces because they're symmetrical on both sides, and then they also should be symmetrical across the two pieces as well. So keep that in mind. All right. So let's get that. And that looks pretty good. Now what we need to do, get this angle back. It probably breaks just like that right into it. So that right there, you can kind of see the pencil markings. That's where that angle break, that surface, that's where it should basically be at this point, right? So to really try and make this happen, I'm going to start just smooth and just kind of scrape this surface out here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, for this, since it's a little bit of a finer task, we're going to switch off to a much finer file. This is more of a diamond, well, not necessarily a diamond file, but more of a jeweler's file, right? Now, Kenneth Sim has a great question, and Ken, let's get you one of those.
We have a question.
Kenneth Sim over there on YouTube, he says, will Tim recast the parts for both sides after treatment's done? I could. For something like this, though, I don't know. You know, it might be kind of a game time decision. If I'm super happy with one and then I go try it on another one, or the other side, and I'm not really happy with it, I very well could recast it in resin, just to save myself the trouble. But I think what I'm going to do first is try to replicate the shape without having to recast it, because honestly, resin casting is a bit expensive. And I'd rather save my money, because right now I don't have any more silicone rubber, and my what I have left on resin is close to being dead, meaning it's close to reaching expiration point, right? So resin has a finite lifespan. It's not good forever, unfortunately. I wish it was. And the reason for that is because of water penetration. Water will get into the two parts of the resin and just cause it to just kind of die. So that's where my leftover resin is at this point. So regardless, I would need at very least new silicone rubber to make the mold. That's about $30. And then if I need new resin, that's probably another $30. So $60 to make one part, not exactly economical at this point. So to avoid that cost, I'm going to try to reshape the other one, and hopefully go from there. Hopefully I'm successful, because I really don't feel like dropping $60 to make one part. Anyway, great question, Kenneth. Very, very good question. So there you go. Let's see. Here's another one. Nathan James. He's over there in the Mecha Army Facebook group. He goes by Zero Kai for those of you playing at home. He says, "What blade was that on your Olfa hobby knife?" Great question, Ken. Great question, Nathan. This is the Olfa chisel blade, right? One of my favorites. And it's just a normal hobby blade, but in a chisel shape, just a flat chisel shape, right? So that's all it is. And if you want them, Amazon link, dude, check it out. They're in there. You can get them, I think, like $5-8 on Amazon, something like that. They're amazing. I use them all the time. Yeah, all the time. Let's see. Aw, B. Miss Brittany, for those of you guys that don't know, B, who was our gracious host for Mechanism last week. She's on YouTube over there. She says, okay, so when are you putting glitter on it? At the very end, dear. At the very end. Not just yet. Patience. And then Julio, Mr. Clippin' Nubs, he says, glitter just a build-off. Maybe after GBWC. Maybe. Yeah, hey, go check out Miss B, Gumplug Yaru on Instagram, and then also go check out our boy Julio, Mr. Clippin' Nubs over there too. Julio's doing some big things as well, so there you go. Anywho, all right, let's get back to this here right quick. And what we're going to do, because we're working a little bit finer here to get this surface break, is we're going to use our sanding block to try and attain that shape there, right? Because we're not there just yet. We need to finesse this just a little bit. And yes, I'm obsessing over this one surface. You got to, guys. You've got to. I know it's not everyone's aspirations to win GBWC and go to Japan, but it is, I understand, a goal for a lot of people. To get there, you guys, you've got to obsess over little things like this. You've got to. You've got to hit it with a lot of patience and a lot of attention to detail. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're spending time on this, right? And we're looking pretty damn good so far. Let's just get this with the bastard file right here. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Let's mock this up on the leg. Let's see where we're at here, right? Get that going there. And let's get the side piece on here. Now, that's looking more and more like an RX leg every single time. That's looking really good. Yeah. Much, much better. Much better. Cool. All right. Very nice. Now we've got to even out these surfaces back here because these are completely uneven. You can see how this one juts down here on this side, so we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But first, let's see. Nice. Miss B. She's like a mini celebrity over here. B's awesome. I don't care what y'all can say. Iron Manaquil. Iron Manaquil. They're over there on Facebook. Hey, what are we building today? Hey, we're making a Jesta into an RX. Yeah. GBWC 2020 project here. So we're reshaping the knee armor. We added epoxy putty. Ooh, it'd be good if it was on camera. We're reshaping the knee armor. We're adding epoxy putty to fill that in, make it look like one single piece. So that's what we're building today. Thank you for asking. Thanks for stopping by. Anyway. Hey, if you guys missed it, our boy Chris Pabs, who is no longer Red Suns on Instagram. He's no longer Red Suns. He is now Chris Pabs, Chris_Pabs with a Z on Instagram. So much easier to find now. He just completed his Dynamis, and it looks pretty damned amazing. y'all should go check it out. I know he posted it in the Mecha Army Facebook group, so that's an easy place to find it if you have not seen it just as of yet. Or if you haven't joined the Mecha Army Facebook group, I highly recommend that too. Anyway, B says, Tim, tell people to buy my stickers so I can donate the proceeds to... Yes! Okay. So, you guys, real quick, let me just take a quick break here out from Miss B and tell you all about this here, just right quick. What B's trying to do is help raise donations and funds for an aviation museum down in her neck of the woods down there in Louisiana. They have yet to open, and they are kind of building it as we speak. And what she's doing is she's selling some stickers. And really cool stickers. One is her kind of Gunpla Gyaru sticker, and the other one is a cool little sticker of her cat Ravioli with like lightning bolts coming out of its eyes and stuff like that. So a little freaky, a little weird, but very cool. Go on to Gunpla Gyaru on Instagram, message her, hook it up. They are $15, but all of the proceeds minus the costs and I think stuff like that go to the Aviation Museum. And now what that's gonna do in turn is that's going to provide the cool folks down there for a meeting place to build Gundam models and stuff like that on a regular basis. So that should be really cool too. So go hook it up. They're cool stickers. They're awesome, and B is just amazing. So, see her. There we go. B Gunpla Gyaru, Gyaru, Gunpla Gyaru, all one word with the @ symbol in front. Gunpla Gyaru for a pic of the sticker, she says. So go hook it up. Go hook it up. It goes to a good cause, right? And it helps out the community, the Gunpla community down there in Louisiana. Go do that. It'll make yourself feel good. And also, while you do that, go join the Mecha Army Facebook group. Just saying. All right, let's start on this other side here, shall we? We're going to do the same kind of exact process. We're just going to start by feathering out the epoxy putty here. And we're just going to trim that down using the surface as our guide. Just like that. Yeah. Really good. So that gets one surface nice and feathered in there, looking really quite nice. Very, very good. Now let's get this other surface in here and get that started to feather in as well. And I'm just using kind of short cutting motions here to even this transition out here. Okay. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Let's see. Julio says, Tim the best. Man, nah. Bernie says, thank you so much. No, B, don't. You don't have to do that. Thank you for doing what you do. Anyway, Julio has a new Weeb show called Weeb Access. So go check out his show. I'm gonna watch it. Julio, when is it gonna be on? No, people, I kid. Because Julio's kidding. That would be a dope name for a show. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. Iron Manaquil over there on Facebook, he says, really nice chisel you got there. What brand is that? This right here, this little chisel blade is by Olfa. Let's see if you can see the... no, yeah, Olfa. O-L-F-A. Olfa. Same company that makes the handles as well. All of this is really, really top-end stuff. So, but amazingly inexpensive. So that's always a good thing, right? You can find all this on the Amazon link in the description on Facebook and on the YouTubes. So go hit it up and you'll find this. These are actually really inexpensive comparatively. And if you guys know the Tamiya art knife, they're the same exact thing as these, just rebranded. Olfa rebrands their knives for Tamiya, and they're the same exact thing, but less expensive than Tamiya's. How about that, right? So go check it out. We got an update from Julio here. Julio says Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 p.m. Awesome. I'm gonna watch that. Just every other Friday, right, Julio? All right. We're looking pretty damn good here. Let's start scraping down this angle right here, though, because that right here is going to be problematic right here. We're just going to scrape that down. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because there was a high point in the putty right here. I know it was hard to see, or probably impossible to see on camera, but trust me when I say that's the reason why I was kind of doing it that way. Okay. Looking good. Looking good, looking good. All right, so now we can kind of break out the file and start to even these transitions up and clean these up and make them look really, really nice and slick. Okay. That is buttery smooth right there. That is good, kids. That is really good. Now we're just going to sand that down just like that, just to get that transition perfect. Just like that. And then we caused that natural break there as well, which is really nice. But we've got to start to smooth that other corresponding surface here. There's a little bit of epoxy putty on here that we gotta bring down to a lower level. Yeah, that's looking much better, but we're just not there just yet. We need to take off some more material here to even this up, but that's looking pretty good. Now, just for symmetry purposes, we're going to mark the angle here of that break point, and then we're also going to mark the angle here of that break point and see where these line up, right? So this one is just a tad bit lower, so there's more material over here, that tells me, than over here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come back in with this, and we're going to have to take off a little bit more material to reach perfect symmetry. And so now the break point is up here. And to me, that looks pretty good. But to be sure, you want to get a little piece of styrene, a little strip of plastic, and measure that. But there's about a 0.5 millimeter between the strip and the mark, and same thing on that side. So what that tells us is, since those marks are parallel or even or straight or whatever, it means the angles are symmetrical on both sides of the piece. So that's what we're hunting for, right? That's the key. So this surface here, really, really good. This surface, pretty much dead solid, perfect. Now we just need to sand down this flat edge here, right? So to do that, we're going to grab our sanding block here. Now there's a little high point right there that I'm going to actually trim down with this. Scrape that down because that's going to cause problems when we get into sanding this surface here. Alright, so there we go. Now that's probably going to be better. So let's see what we've got here. Yeah, that's going to be good. That's good. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do, just to make this a little bit easier, because as I look at it right now, these angles, these breaks, these surface breaks are not going to ever be even. I just don't have the time or patience for it or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to smooth that transition out. We're going to smooth that angle. We're going to feather that down, right? And honestly, you're never going to notice this. It's going to look like one flat surface after it's primed and painted, quite frankly. So I'm not overly worried about it. And at this point, you know what? I'm good with it. I would have loved to have that nice kind of hard break point in there of those angles, but it's just I gotta, sometimes you just have to admit it to yourself that it's just not gonna be as perfect as you want it to be, right? To get that perfect angle break in there, you'd have to have some serious control on the chisels and everything, right? So we're going to take a little bit more, not necessarily the easier way out, but a more efficient way out, right? Now we've still got the hard angle break right here and right over here. So that's good. That's what we essentially really want, right? So now the whole top part here is all shaped and looking pretty damn good, right? So now this is all one solid piece here to the naked eye. But before we can move on, we have to even up and flatten out this bottom surface. So for that, let's see. Here it is. This, nope, that's not it. Where's the other one? Ah, here it is. So this is one of the small files from High Spec, the ones that make the big old nasty aggressive bastard file. This is a smaller, just kind of needle file here, but equally as aggressive. So we're going to use this as our tool to basically just take the high points off of this epoxy putty. You want to be pretty careful with this because you don't want to take away too much, because that would be bad, right? That would be real bad. And you want it to be even on both sides. And as I see it here, I have more epoxy putty on the bottom of this side than I do this side here. Let's do a time check. Whew, 11:44 already. Crazy. So we got about 15 minutes left, and I think we've got plenty of time to get this thing evened out here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. This surface here looks like it's just dead on flat, and that looks good, but this surface here is not quite there yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue, but we're going to angle the file up just a bit so it doesn't rest on this side. Okay, that getting closer. So we're going to put this off to the side. We're going to go back to just our regular old needle files here, and which is less aggressive than that file that we were working with here just a second ago. And it gives a smoother surface as well, because they are nice and fine like that, right? Okay. That looks pretty damn good, you guys. That looks like a pretty damn close finished piece to me. Yeah, no gap under here. Now, what I'm seeing is there's a gap right here. Still, right? And that's kind of to be expected, you know, kind of to be expected. But what we can do is we can backfill that in with, yeah, 0.5 millimeter is going to be what we need. Let's get the other side piece on here, and let's double check the tolerance here. Yeah, okay. So on this side, we're going to have to backfill this with 0.5 millimeter strip right along there. Not a big deal. Let's do that real quick. We've got still like 15 minutes. Not a biggie. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our hobby knife and we're going to square up these corners here. Just because it's going to be a lot easier to fit this plastic strip in here if these corners are nice and sharp, right? So that looks good there. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to cut a strip that is slightly longer than what we need, and I'll show you why here in just a few seconds. Right there, and then with the pencil we're going to mark right about there, and that's where we're going to cut this thing. Now, like I said, this is a little bit longer than what we actually need, and there's a reason for that, right? So using our little tweezers here, you can see that this is probably about, I don't know, 2 millimeters over what we need. Because what we've got to do, since we cut hard angles, in there, this piece now needs to be beveled on both ends to properly fit as well as possible. So to do that, we're going to take our chisel blade and we are going to cut into this at an angle. All right? So now that edge is beveled. We're going to place this right into here. That looks fairly good. Let's check the other side to see if that's a better fit. Yeah, see, that's a better fit on that other side. So we're going to use this side to go on here. And then now what we've got to do is we got to find where we have to cut the other side. All right? So we're going to just kind of hold that in place for right now. And then with the pencil, right there. All right? So now we've just got to take a little sliver off this thing. But it's not going to be nearly as drastic an angle. You want it to be as square as possible here. So let's see what that looks like here. And that, we're close. We're very, very close here. Just a little bit more, just a hair too long. Just like that. Let's see what that does. There we go. That's good. Now, my Facebook is going crazy right now, and I don't know why. Let's see. Ah. Because my messenger's blowing up. Go figure. Anyway, I'll get to that here in a few minutes. But, of course, it's going to continue to blow up. Anyway, we're going to super glue this thing into place. We're just going to get kind of a nice little drop there, and we're just going to very evenly spread that down along that surface. And then we are, which side is the angles? Just like that here. Okay. Okay, so that looks good there. Now, while we're doing it, I see a little pinhole gap right there between the epoxy putty and the plastic. So what we're going to do is we are going to fill that in, and I'm just going to get a little drop of super glue here on a sprue or just a kind of a scrap piece of plastic. I'm just going to apply that right to the piece. And we're going to trim that back here in just a moment or two once we trim the plastic piece back here. Okay. Now, to quicken this process up, we're going to use a little bit of Instaset. We're just going to pop a drop right along there. Now, that's going to take a few seconds for it to cure, and it's going to go like that, right? So let's see what's going on in the chat real quick. No, I'm serious. Paper Towns was filmed in my high school. Bry Guy says that over on YouTube. It's a wonderful distinction, Brian. I don't know why, but it is. Let's see. Hey, Mr. Craig Flynn's over there, Flynn Burger. Perth Zaku's girl, Jody. What's going on? What's going on, you guys? Flynn says, I'm famous. I was on Mechanism once. Dude, you need to get back on with us. Got to. Flynn says, the office is empty here, so I have Tim up on the big screen in the conference room. What? Okay. So that means that I have to do this. Sorry. Had to do it. Anyway. Alright. So now that we've got this and the glue is cured, the Instaset is dry, now we can go about trimming this plastic back and really forming it up. So now to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach for my hobby knife of choice, my little NT cutter blade here, and we're going to start to trim this plastic back along the contour of the piece itself. And you don't have to get it perfect on the first pass here either, because I'm definitely not trying to do that. I'm just basically cutting off the high points, so to speak. Right now, there's a little corner here that's jutting out pretty good. So to get that, I'm going to use my Tamiya 123s and just kind of clip most of it off there. And nice. Flynn liked that. Good. But to get most of that stuff off of there, and we're just naturally getting this trimmed up nice and neat here. So now that we've got kind of our low-hanging fruit, so to speak, off of here, now we're going to go back and do our finishing passes. Now, again, you don't have to get this in the first shot. You can, you know, take several attempts to get this cleaned up. Not a big deal. Just as long as it's nice and even. And, hell, you could also just scrape this down if you are so inclined, right? Just remember the angle break right there, because you don't want to disturb that, right? That's the big thing to keep in mind, right? All right, but just trim that off there. That looks pretty good. Okay, now do the fingernail test. Pretty damn good. That's pretty sweet. Now, we match this up here. We pop this on. And, I know what I forgot to do. Come on now. Forgot to trim the inside. And it's stuck on there. Son of a bitch. Alright, no worries. We got this. Okay. There we go. See, because the plastic strip caused a lip to form in here, and since we didn't shave that back, it caused it to basically get stuck on there. But not to worry, because we can trim this back to the contour of the inside now. Okay, and we're just going to scrape that down, clean that out, Make that look as clean and as nice as possible in there. So now we should be good, right? Now we should be good. Let's see what we've got here. One last little bit to trim here. Right there. And moment of truth. Ha ha ha, ba-boom. That is looking pretty nice. And now, pop this on there. And now you can see that gap virtually disappear. There's a hairline of a gap in there, but it's basically symmetrical with all the other gaps between the armor pieces and stuff like that. So I'm perfectly good with that, you guys. Perfectly good with that. So there you go. In 2 hours, or an hour and some change, we have taken this from a nasty glob of putty and made it into a perfectly formed and shaped part. Form fitting across the armor, the whole 9 yards. Now once this is primed and painted, you'll never know that this epoxy putty is there, and it's going to look like one piece. Plain and simple. Easy peasy. It just is tedious. Plain. And that's really all that it is. It's tedious. It takes work, and obviously it takes dedication to it. So there you go. Woo boy. So that's the show. Second night in. There we are. We got a piece. We got a piece. All right. So with that being said, let's wrap this one up, everybody. Let's just say, hey, if you want a cool ass mecha shirt here, nice and black and with the script and all that, while my Facebook Messenger is blowing up, go ahead, www.childofmecha.com, hit the store button up at the top. You'll find shirts and hats and all sorts of other cool stuff, and go get stocked up on that. So that's it's good stuff there. Also too, if you are interested in any of the tools and materials that we worked with here tonight, these cool little chisel blades, little NT cutter, the super glue, all that stuff, go hit you up on the Amazon link just below here on YouTube and Twitch, that side, if you're watching on Facebook. And if you need all sorts of models and paints, or if you need some Mecha Decals in your life, go hit up our good friends right down here in the corner. Adam and the fine folks at USA Gundam Store is definitely going to have what you need, right? So, good stuff. Happy Wednesday, hump day. Let's go. With that being said, everybody, thank you for being a part of the Child of Mecha live stream, man. It's been awesome coming back. We had a lot of people on Monday. We had a lot of people on tonight, and man, you're still hanging in here with me. So that's really, really cool to see. If you have not joined the Mecha Army Facebook group, go do it. What are you waiting for? Do it. Anyway, good night, everybody. I will see you back here on Friday. And then next week's actually going to be a normal week. I don't have to travel next week, so it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really cool. A new mechanism next Friday, so come on back for that. All right. So until then, until Friday, I'll see y'all later.